Atrocious, ugly, baffling, offensive, pandering, disrespectful, and straight up garbage are some of the words that I would describe this disaster that was put onto HBO. Velma, a show consisting of a quote-unquote parody of Scooby-Doo, which is nothing short of the same typical political and queer-baiting tropes that you constantly see throughout current television shows. In this animation, Velma Dinkley is a snarky teenage would-be detective who has a crush on murder suspect Fred Jones. She tends to have a lifelong passion for solving mysteries that she inherited from her mother, but since her disappearance years prior, Velma is a lot more cautious regarding mysteries and has horrific, guilt-based hallucinations whenever she attempts to solve one. She is partially modeled after Kayleen and is portrayed as a bisexual South Asian American. And without much to surprise, she also happens to be the most disliked character in the show, due to her unfunny dialogue, as well as her consistently rude behavior that is not called for. And before some of you claim to call me sensitive, trust me, I love me some adult shows. But try to believe me when I say that there are times and places to which some of that kind of writing hits the right spots. But for a character that is specifically this one, I would have to say otherwise. With that being said, we shall be doing a concise review onto one of, if not the worst show ever put out in 2023, and possibly in general. Simply titled Velma, an animated nightmare that shouldn't have been made in the first place. I shall be covering all of the episodes within this show, and I will be expressing my thoughts as I do so. Thank you all for stopping by once again, and I do highly apologize for my absence within these months. Lots of personal things came about, and I had to take care of them before I decided to come back to content creation. But I will at least try to put out a video when given the free time. Now then, let us begin this review. Make sure to subscribe with bell notifications, hit the like, and I hope you all enjoy this video. Episode 1. Velma. Velma is implicated when Brenda is murdered, and is tasked with clearing her name within 24 hours. Despite having guilt-driven hallucinations about mystery since her mother went missing. After hearing from Norville that it might be connected to a missing camera and a cover-up in the malt shop bathroom, she suspects that Sophie is involved, but she is soon proven innocent. Amon explains Adiah simply left them on purpose, supposedly solving the mystery. And so Velma attempts to move on, only to be confronted by the other girls, including Daphne, quote-unquote, who lets it slip that Fred has some insecurities and is known to kick partners out of the malt shop bathroom. Velma and Norville sneak into his mansion and finds the latter's camera, revealing Fred was the one who covered up the evidence. Fred explains that he is simply embarrassed about being a late bloomer and seemingly plans to kill Velma, but actually just wants to buy her silence. Okay. He is nonetheless taken in by Donna and Linda. And with her name being cleared, Velma strives to pick up mystery solving again and figure out what really happened to her mother, only to find Krista has been murdered as well, ending episode 1. Episode 2, The Candy Woman. While Amon reluctantly agrees to defend Fred in court, Velma asks Daphne for the cold case file on Adiah, but Daphne says that she'll only do it if given $500. Velma soon discovers Daphne is the school's candy woman, quote-unquote, and is threatened into helping her sell more drugs. Meanwhile, Norville makes several attempts to get the $500 for her, from selling a sword in his room to almost donating a kidney. He is rewarded $500 for apprehending a gunman, but he doesn't accept it, figuring he should win Velma's heart instead of buying it. Daphne reveals the real reason why she has been selling drugs and ends up reconnecting with Velma. Amon then agrees to give Velma the $500 if she helps them prove Fred's innocence, to which she ultimately does. Everybody is convinced, but Fred snaps when his childishness is displayed to the public, and he is declared guilty. While Amon's career is ruined, Daphne gives Velma her mother's file, and it contains a clue, stating her phone last went off at Fred's home. Much to her shock, Daphne manages to stop her hallucination by kissing her. Much to Norville's dismay, might I add. And so that's the end of episode 2. Yeah, episode 2, and we're already getting into the shittiest parts of the fucking season. Anyways, let's just continue this fiasco, why don't we? Episode 3, Velma Kai. While sorting out her feelings for Daphne, Velma plans to ask an imprisoned Fred about Daya, but another hallucination gets her kicked out of the prison. Coolsville High holds a women's self-defense tournament with Daphne and Velma making it to the finals. And before their fight, they both admitted to liking each other, but Velma suspects Daphne won't explore her feelings because her popularity is at stake. She ends up reading Daphne's journal in front of the student body, but is forced to apologize after her stunt backfires. The girls reconcile, but decide to just be friends for now. Meanwhile, Norville tries to pick Fred's brain in Velma's place, borrowing his father's cardigan, in order to seem like a real therapist. Fred confirms he had nothing to do with the murders or Daya's disappearance, much to Velma's chagrin. The other prisoners also seek Norville's therapy, but when he forgets to show up, they incite a riot and they bust out, only to be caught by Linda and Donna, which ends episode 3. Episode 4, Velma Makes a List. After Fred was released from prison, a third girl named Lola is confirmed murdered much like Brenda and Krista. Sheriff Cogburn determines the pattern in the cases, being that each victim is attractive. Velma offers to rank which girls are the most likely to be a victim, but this prompts every girl to unintentionally sexualize themselves in order to make it onto the list. Okay, I'm gonna have to pause for a second because isn't the setting for this show for like high schoolers or something like that, and the fact that they're addressing this into the show is extremely offensive in itself? I don't know. I'm just very uncomfortable with that idea, but we'll just continue with this, I guess. Overwhelmed, Velma tells Fred to make the list for her, which also includes Daphne, and at the cops' request, she tries to mask the girls' attractiveness to keep them safe. The girls reject this, feeling that they shouldn't have to hide their true selves for any reason. And Velma isn't given much time to think about this when she becomes a stepsister after Sophie gives birth. Meanwhile, Fred learns to appreciate inner beauty after reading The Feminine Mystique. And Norville helps Daphne find some clues about her parents' disappearance by rooting through the town's history with crystals. And in the mid-credits scene, Norville runs into Gigi and instantly becomes attracted to her. Ending episode 4. Episode 5, Marching Band Sleepover. While Norville's new relationship with Gigi keeps him occupied from helping in Velma's investigation, Fred tells her that his house used to belong to a mad scientist named Dr. Edna Purdue. Since Fred is unable to ease Velma's hallucinations, she decides to hold a canceled marching band sleepover at her home to lure Norville over. Velma and Gigi fight over his attention before Gigi reveals that Dr. Purdue was Norville's grandmother. The sleepover goes awry after the guests start starving, so Velma, Norville, Gigi, and Fred go out to get some food in Linda and Donna's stolen police car. Velma eventually realizes her own selfishness and lets herself get caught by the police so the others can escape, during which she bribes Principal Rogers into telling her about Dr. Purdue. Meanwhile, Daphne infiltrates the closed Crystal Coves and finds her disguised biological parents there, who claim that her mother stole her from them. And after they refuse to tell Daphne more about her adoption, she secretly returns to the cove where her parents are revealed to be members of a criminal gang. Apparently. With that, ending episode 5. Episode 6, The Sins of the Fathers and Some of the Mothers. Principal Rogers tells Velma the story of how Dr. Edna Purdue went insane after working on a secret project called Special Covert Operation Brain Initiative, or, for short, Scooby. What a funny haha reference. And before she can reveal how this is connected to Daya, Velma hallucinates once again, after realizing that these are caused by her father's disbelief about her mother's kidnapping. Velma then confronts Amon, who decides to spend more time with her. They begin to bond, but Velma discovers Amon used her as an excuse so he can do his job on his paternity leave behind Sophie's back. With her being oh so frustrated, Velma demands the answers from Rogers, who tells her that Daya did research on Purdue's work. And with Fred's help, Velma found Purdue's old lab under Jones's home, where they are joined by Amon, who finally believes Daya's kidnapping after finding a note that says Jinkies in her handwriting. Meanwhile, Daphne spends time with her biological parents, only to learn that they want to use her as an insurance policy when they leave the town with the stolen crystals. And they are then arrested by Linda and Donna, who finally tells the truth to Daphne about her adoption, and then she reconciles with them. Ending episode 6. Episode 7, Fogfest. With her hallucinations finally being over, Velma spends all of her time investigating, while the town-wide curfew is lifted due to the annual Crystal Cove Fogfest. Fred's parents insist that he wins the Fog King and Queen titles, so he asks Daphne to be his date to increase his chances, while Norville also plans to win the title for himself and Gigi. Velma discovers a hidden phone number on Daya's Jinkies note, and after calling it, she realizes that the serial killer is at Fogfest. Since the girls are not allowed to attend without a date, she disguises herself as a guy named Manny, and she finds that everybody gives her more attention this way, even including Daphne, who predictably becomes attracted to her, and even telling quote-unquote him how Velma ignored her lately. After they get elected as Fog Queen and King, Fred exposes Velma's disguise, but still ends up losing the title to Norville and Gigi. Velma then apologizes to Daphne for being a bad friend before the killer just randomly shows up and attacks them. They manage to escape, but so does the killer, leaving only a cell phone behind. And in the mid-credits scene, Fred is also kidnapped by the killer. Ending the vomit-inducing episode 7. Episode 8 of Velma in the Woods. Daphne and Velma hack the serial killer's phone, finding a photo of the Mount Crystal Woods. They plan to go there the next day, but Daphne rain checks at the last minute to hang out with Olive instead. Velma then apparently lies about her hallucinations, returning to lure Daphne along, and Norville invites them to stay at Gigi's family cabin, where Gigi originally planned a romantic evening for themselves. And then after they all become trapped at the bottom of the ravine, Daphne admits that she purposely wanted to make Velma jealous because she loves her possessive nature. And then Gigi confronts Norville about him still liking Velma. Cringe, cringe, cringe. They later discover a tunnel connected to the crystal mines, and it leads them to the serial killer's lair, where they find Fred and the still functioning brains of the victims in the high school. This is just getting fucking worse, isn't it? And during this, Velma proposes for her and Daphne to start a relationship, but they are then interrupted when the tunnel begins to collapse. They are then saved by Daya, who gets everyone safely to the surface in her van. Velma happily reunites with her mother, but when she asks who kidnapped her, Daya says that she cannot remember. Ending episode 8. Episode 9, A Family Woman. Daya is diagnosed with amnesia, and she only has about 72 hours to regain her memories before they are gone forever. Velma then thinks the best way to bring her memories back is to keep her happy by lying about the events of the past 2 years, which includes hiding Amon's relationship with Sophie. She also lies that Sophie's child is actually hers from Norville, who agrees to also play along for Oh my god, this is just so bad. However, when Velma finds that Lamont has the same welding mask as the serial killer, she accuses him, but he is proven to be innocent. Feeling betrayed by her actions, Norville officially ends his friendship with Velma, thank god, and meanwhile Daphne and Fred pretends to be dating again in order to regain their popularity at school. And they even reluctantly kiss to prove that, which is witnessed by Velma, and it hurts her fucking feelings. Boo-hoo. Daya eventually learns about Amon's infidelity, but is also freed from her loveless marriage. And so her memories return, and she reveals that she was the serial killer all along, and much to everybody's shock, holy smokes, that is completely wild, And that also ends episode 9. Let's just get to episode 10 and we'll finally get to our conclusion. Episode 10, also the final episode, is titled The Brains of the Operation. Velma refuses to believe her mother was the killer, but she also doesn't have much time to prove her innocence before she is sentenced to death. And after talking to her, she notices how mechanically she repeats all of her answers and realizes Daya was also hypnotized. She remembers that the killer also hypnotized her for 2 years ago to blame herself for Daya's disappearance. And so Daphne finds the pocket watch that Velma remembers the killer used for hypnosis, and they discover the logo of the Joneses company onto it. Velma then figures out that Victoria Jones is the killer, trying to recreate Dr. Purdue's work to switch Fred's brain with a more competent person's, so that he could be a proper heir to the family company. Oh, that's such great writing, isn't it? Upon arriving at the Joneses' place, or whatever you'd call it, she finds Daphne and Fred tied up together in Purdue's lab and stops Victoria before she can hurt them. A fight then ensues, ending with Norville's unexpected arrival, and he accidentally kills Victoria in the process. And so despite solving the case and being hailed as heroes, the four of them drift apart due to the events and their complicated relationships with each other. And in the mid-credits scene, Sheriff Cogburn is then killed by a new killer, I guess. To which brings this show, or I guess I would say this season, to an end. Thank Christ. So now that we have covered these episodes, let me give my point of view after basically hate watching this. There is zero, and I mean zero, redeeming qualities to viewing this. You will find little to no satisfactory from seeing this animated dumpster fire. I actually would rather watch the new Masters of the Universe Revelation show than even dare come back to this one. The moment that I witnessed the tone and how the beginning of this show was going to be, as well as seeing the trailers, it was so obvious, and I just knew from first glance that it was just not going to be successful. And as a matter of fact, this might genuinely be the most low-rated show on HBO as we speak. I also would peep other review channels such as IMDb, to which has a 1.4 out of 10 right now. And not even those silly B-rated movies that have that low of a score, because those at least have charm and something that you can get a laugh out of. Velma, on the other hand, you are going to be getting nothing but pure, nasty diarrhea dump into your hands. There is no jokes that you will be laughing from, and not once did this show put any smile onto my face. I could be stoned, drunk, or on all sorts of stimulants that increase my emotions tenfold, and the only one that it would bring out is pure boredom. They need to remove the comedy tag, because I refuse to consider this show that. Now just imagine this, okay? Imagine having the license to one of, if not the most popular cartoon in Warner Brothers and or Hanna-Barbera history, and then taking it and turning it into a disgusting college frat house drama where everybody is basically a bully and they're vomiting for laughs. And this might honestly be the most hate-filled reinterpretation of a cartoon that I have ever seen. The people who created the show obviously have some sort of strange-ass agenda here. I mean, are they really going for 100% rage views? Is destroying an established franchise going to get them into some secret Hollywood club? Do the creators have some sort of personal vendetta against Scooby-Doo from their childhood or some shit? Nothing but pure confusion, and obviously a very pathetic attempt at creating an audience that even dares to try and engage with this show in particular. This show is obviously trying to be some sort of weird, like, new Harley Quinn cartoon, but they seem to not realize what made that show at least a decent watch. At least the writers for that show respected the lore and the characters still felt like their comic and or previous counterparts. While in Velma, not a single character is anything like their previous counterparts. This just comes off as a crappy mystery show with Scooby-Doo character names being used, and it's baffling to imagine that they think that this show wasn't gonna flop. Not to mention, you just can't do a Mystery Inc. gang without Scooby-Doo. Like, what the hell is wrong with you? I just don't think that they realized that the original show would not have become so big if it was just a group of regular-ass kids solving mysteries. Scooby-Doo, the talking dog himself, was pretty much the heart and soul of that entire series. Taking him out of his own series is like killing off Superman in Superman, or killing off Robin in Teen Titans, or killing off He-Man in Masters of the Universe. Oh, oops, that's a spoiler. But you pretty much get what I'm saying here. It's completely ridiculous, and I just don't think that they're ever going to learn from it. At least the previous incarnations are good. I mean, I would honestly much rather give those a watch, especially something like Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated. That's just a much better show with good character development and overarching plots and actual good episodes. And honestly, as for Velma, all they simply had to do was try something similar to Mystery Incorporated. But the result ended up being atrocious. They also did the thing where they changed the ethnicity of certain characters for the sake of representation, as well as removing any sort of humor and or personality that this show would have had. Now, I could go more in depth with this show, but I say it's about time that we wrap up this pile of crap for good. Velma, without any question and or arguments, is a fat 1 out of 10. Like I said before, there is zero, and I mean zero, redeeming qualities. The animation is generic and constantly seen in propaganda-based shows, the plot is horrific and offensive, the main character as well as side characters are a complete and utter joke, as well as the blatant racism and sexism that the main character loves displaying. And the dark edgy humor isn't even good in comparison to something like South Park. No, it's just straight up cringe and almost unwatchable. Nobody in this show is likable in the slightest, except for maybe Fred, but even he's created in such a way that it's just pure disrespect. Because in this show, he's just a crazy pretty boy white kid with blonde hair. So really, I truly and honestly believe that this is the worst animated show that I have possibly ever witnessed. I have also even heard that Season 2 is cancelled, and that there's a lot of damage control on Twitter at the moment from the insane amount of backlash that the show has received. And to be perfectly honest, it is very, very much deserved. The fact that HBO, the directors, and all the prerequisites that bypass to actually air this piece of shit definitely tells us that they are not going to be stopping anytime soon. To which I shall say, don't get your hopes up anymore. And so, that is my conclusion to the worst animated television show that I have ever seen, simply and disrespectfully named Velma. Why hello there my viewers and acquaintances. Thank you all very much for sticking around to the ending of this video. I highly appreciate all of you that have supported me over the course of months to years. You forever shall have my gratitude, and I will also continue trying to provide entertaining content. And with that being said, we shall be ending this video. Don't forget to leave a subscribe, as well as a like if you enjoyed what you have seen. Have yourselves a good morning, a good afternoon, and I hope you all have yourselves a good night.